I'm a psychologist, and today I'm going to teach you some basic strategies on how to overcome the feeling that you have disappointed your parents. So, to overcome this difficulty is to understand that technically you haven't disappointed your parents because you're not becoming the person that you want to be. You are just failing at becoming the person that they wanted you to be. That's an important distinction to be made there. Let me try and word it a different way. Your parents probably had a vision for you. They had some ideas about how they wanted your life to go down, what they wanted you to be, or conversely, maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't offer any guidance and they let you sort of figure it out as you go. So, whether they gave you guidance or didn't give you guidance invariably means that there is some sort of personality that you've developed based on your interactions with them. And you've probably decided that a lot of your value and worth is dependent on this personality, this idea of who you should be in their eyes, and if they've given you direction, who they want you to be in their eyes. Trouble with that is that that might not necessarily be who you are. Now, the logic also works if you have been excessively criticized by your parents. One way or another, based on your interactions with them, whether they've given you direction, given you criticism, or given you nothing, a persona or idea of you has been inbuilt into you based on your interactions with them. And then this brings me back to my opening logic, which is that in many ways you haven't really been a disappointment because the version of you that you want to be is not there, but in its place is a version of you that your parents want you to be, or the version that you've kind of come up with in relation to your perception of your parents. It's like punishing someone for not becoming an athlete when they thought they were supposed to become the president. So, if you've come to recognize one of the core issues in this dilemma, great. If not, I'll spell it out for you. Basically, what the person needs to do is to differentiate who they want to be with who they thought they had to be, because these are two very important distinctions to make. For the most part, it's very likely that the person has been operating on the assumption that they need to become a version of themselves that was actually created through negative interactions with their parents or lack thereof interactions. And they've kind of just come up with ideas of how they should conduct themselves, but they're not actually who they want to be. So, in many ways, once again, you haven't failed if you haven't tried to become you. So then you might ask, well, how do I become me? How do I set up the variables that are needed in order to discover who I really am? And there's a few elements to that. The first element is recognizing that your opinion of yourself is actually useful. This might sound a little unusual or it may be impossible to grasp, but your opinion of yourself and your self-perception is actually valuable, and in many ways it could be equal to or even more valuable than that of your parents. So boosting your inner sense of I know who I am through your perception of yourself is absolutely vital. That really comes down to elements of self-trust and self-confidence. Now, you might be thinking, I have no self-trust or no self-confidence, and that is because in order to build confidence, you need to do things that you didn't think you could do to then turn around and say, wow, I did that, go me. Which means that you need to develop a little bit of an idea of who you want to be. Then you go out and test that idea in small doses, and then you return with the results and you say, I wanted to be this, I tried it for a little bit, and I was successful, go me. The next element is detaching from the idea that you need to get it right in the first go. This is for all you self-proclaimed perfectionists out there. Side note, perfectionism doesn't exactly exist. It's more so a strategy to mitigate against things like shame and embarrassment. That's kind of what perfectionism really is. It's you're not really wanting to be perfect, you're just wanting to avoid criticism from others and criticism to yourself and whatnot. So the next element, is really about the potential, opening your mind up to the potential that you don't have to get it right in the first try. And you probably can't even get it right in the first try, because you actually need to try things to figure out whether you actually enjoy it. This is that differentiation between intellectualizing things and then actually converting the behavior to a behavior and doing it. You might think to yourself, oh, I don't like this, or I won't like that, or I'm going to fail at this, I'm going to fail at that. But how can you know you failed until you actually fail? Anything before that is just theoretical fail and therefore is an actual failure. The final element that I think is really useful is recognizing the idea that personality and values and goals is actually a dynamic thing. It's not a fixed endpoint that you try to get to, because through literal life experience and age and circumstances, you're going to have to need to update yourself anyway. So you may as well get used to the idea of having to do that, because it's going to protect you in the future from thinking, well, if I just get it right in the first couple shots, then I can just coast along. This is me, this is my personality, and I don't have to worry about it. And then you'll invariably be confronted with environmental situations that require you to change. So it's better that you just get used to the idea from the get-go that you will have a core sense of self that has some wiggle room, and this will really set you up really for most of life. The final element that's extremely important to consider before I wrap up the video is the idea that if you ever get trapped in a self-criticism loop, it's important to remember that you're only really self-criticizing the version of you that was created through the interactions with your parents. So you're not actually self-criticizing the core you that's important to you. You're actually just self-criticizing the version that you thought you had to be in order to fulfill some sort of role in your interactions with your caregivers. So really key to remember that you're not self-criticizing your actual you. You're just running on old, outdated data that you need to update, through which you would do that by discovering who you really are. So yeah, that's the end of that. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more.